1, 2, and 3. Here we go.
Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Join or Die podcast. I am JT. This is Eddie over here. And
hello, everyone.
We got a doozy of an episode today. I'm going to give you just some quick highlights. We have a 200-pound walrus gets saved. Followed that, we have white people getting beat up and black people getting beat up like normal. We have Hunter Biden taking illegal money once again. And last but not least, and probably my favorite story of the week, we have Governor Desantis and Governor Newsom going head-to-head in a governor debate. We're having a new segment this week where we start out every episode with some good news because the news is depressing and we want some good news. So this week, we found a story about a 200-pound walrus calf that is rescued off the coast of Alaska, about 5 miles. Eddie, do you know much about walruses?
Not much, to be honest.
All right. Well, I'm gonna give
you're gonna have to elucidate to everyone and myself.
Yeah. Love that. I'm gonna give you just some basic facts from what the article pointed out. So baby walruses need a lot of hands-on care from their mother. They literally cannot survive without their mother, much like a human baby can't survive without their mother or father caring for them. They just physically can't eat. So this walrus was found 4 miles off the coast of Alaska, and he was malnourished. Not fed enough, wasn't dehydrated. This dude was in bad shape, and he's 200 pounds, so he needs a lot of food. Luckily, we caught him, and now he's in and getting treatment. But his treatment's just a little bit different than any other treatment. He is prescribed cuddling for 24 hours a day. I wish I had that.
I was going to say, that sounds like a great time.
I know. I'm single. I might have to switch lives and be a walrus in my next past life or something if this is the way it's going to go.
Right. But that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I have a little bit of a psychological background, and I know I've learned that, touch is analgesic. It cures, it remedies. It's a panacea and an antidote to a lot of things. So, I mean, when a friend is going through some sort of tragedy or some bad news, what do we do? What do we offer? We offer them a hug, or we kind of like pat them on the back.
Right.
Touch is analgesic. So exactly how you mentioned. I mean, a walrus getting a little cuddles and whatnot. Man, that sounds like a good time.
No, and what's really cool about the walrus getting cuddled is he physically can't survive without a contact from someone who's like literally babying him. So he really took well to bottle feeding. Yeah, bottle feeding. And he's in a really good shape. And I think it's something that we should all kind of cheer on.
Yeah.
But speaking of walruses, man, we have an even bigger story on the news. We have 2 governors, current governors, that are currently going to be debating each other, hopefully soon. We have Governor Desantis and Governor Newsom. Desantis, obviously from Florida, and Newsom, obviously from California. Both of which, by the way, they're hated by everybody. So I think it's kind of funny.
Yeah. No, so this is from NBC News. Okay, so if you've missed the story, so this is the headline: like a boxing match, Ron DeSantis and Gavin Newsom embrace risk in surprise debate. The 2 governors on opposite ends of the aisles have agreed to a debate moderated by Fox News host Sean Hannity. The results could have big implications for their political futures. And it goes on to read, and this is an article by Alan Smith, whoever the hell that is. But
what's up, Alan?
What's up, Alan? The billionaire tech entrepreneur and benefactor of the right-wing cause opened last year's National Conservatism Conference in Miami with a dense slideshow presentation during which he argued that regardless of whom Democrats nominate for the president, their model for governance will mirror the social and economic policies of California. And it just basically goes on to say kind of what's going to be happening later on this. I don't remember. Did it say when it was going to happen, or they're still trying to figure that out, right?
It's going to happen around, I believe, November.
In November? Okay, that makes sense.
And it was really complicated because Gavin Newsom openly said he wanted to debate Governor DeSantis, but he came with such a long list of all kinds of different ways to kind of shake up DeSantis. He would say things like, hey, you can't have, quote unquote, a public cheering crowd, which essentially means no live audience. That's what he doesn't want. And so DeSantis was like, no, we need an audience. How about we do 50% of the audience said they would vote for you. The other 50% would vote for me to have it a fair audience.
Isn't that kind of nasty? Because if you don't have an audience, you could get a taste of what you're saying
Oh yeah,
by
big
how
taste.
the audience reacts. It's almost like a comedian. You're gauging whether the joke is funny or not.
Right.
If it's not funny, then that's when like the comedians then start pulling back a little bit from the jokes, and they're like, okay, maybe for the next show don't use that one. You need an audience to gauge if what you're running on is going to be working. So yeah, it's kind of absurd that like no one, or Gavin, it was Gavin, right? That's proposing that no audience, right?
Yeah, Gavin proposed it. Ron DeSantis said, no, I want
Like
an audience.
what? Exactly. So that kind of seems absurd. I definitely don't agree with that because I mean, plus it'd be so boring. It's like you're just talking.
I don't think it'd be boring.
Well, boring in the sense of like you need that like the audience interaction because that's going to be real time. If you say something good, people are going to cheer.
Yeah.
If people say something terrible, if it's a terrible idea or whatever it is that you're running your political campaign on or whatever, you're going to know right there. And we could now start gauging and have a little bit of taste of like what the political or not political. I'm sorry, the what the consciousness within the room is going to be. So yeah, that's kind of crazy to think that these are the parameters that he's trying to set on DeSantis. But man, last time we recorded, which by the way, let me just very quickly say, sorry for missing last week. I was out on vacation. A lot of stuff was happening, but we're back. We're back.
Yes.
So
sorry, our one follower.
yeah. Well, no, but one follower on Rumble. However, we do have some listeners that are still listening, so that's good. A lot of my people here are people from my previous podcast, and I'm sure some people from that are following you. But anyways, that's kind of a segue. But last week, or the last episode rather, we were talking about the inadequacies in California because of Gavin Newsom. We were talking about like how the homelessness issue, how it just keeps getting worse and worse. You know, education is terrible. There's so much crime. I mean, we have businesses in San Francisco just basically giving up their businesses.
They literally cannot open their store because it would be stolen.
Yeah, and we're seeing a lot of news articles, or not news articles, but news articles too, but videos how people just keep, there's an incentive to just be burglarizing just a lot of stores, and the stores, because they're part of the whole woke agenda and whatnot, they're like, well, no, it's fine. I mean, I don't remember exactly I think it was Lululemon, where an employee that was trying to stop someone from stealing, the employee got fired because they were just trying to prevent people from stealing. So it's kind of crazy to think that this is what's happening, not just there, but I think Oregon and Washington are adopting a lot of that stuff, or we're seeing a lot of stuff from over there. So it's just kind of crazy. Like,
so.
If these two debate, like, look at the successes. We literally have people from California moving to Florida. So, but what do you think? Like, what are you thinking?
Well, needless to say, Eddie hates California in pretty much all of their policies, which I also hate. I
love the state though. Like the state's a beautiful state.
But I don't think you're giving Gavin enough credit. I mean, California is, if it was its own country, it would be the 5th biggest economy in the entire world. Right. And granted, yes, it is a liberal run economy, maybe not the same economy that you and I would run, but it is also the 5th largest economy. And we may not agree with some of the social policies, but the economic policy that's come out in California has actually been pretty positive, or else they wouldn't be, 5th largest. Now, there are tons of attributes as to why it's become the 5th biggest, right? The weather in its southern part for its states, the San Francisco, it's a hub for tech sector. But when you're watching this debate between Ron DeSantis and Gavin Newsom in November, what you're really watching for is what is the future of each party. Because Gavin is the future of the Democratic Party, and Ron DeSantis is the future of the Republican one. Now, it's interesting that the article points out embrace risk in surprise debate. The reason why DeSantis needs this is super clear. Trump is a former president, and DeSantis is a governor trying to compete with that.
Mm-hmm.
And Governor Desantis, although he was supposed to be the front runner, is now sliding down in the polls. I mean, he was at one point 20, 25%. Now he's at 10, 11, sometimes even in the single digits, depending on what poll you pick.
Mm-hmm.
So when Governor Desantis in this article is pointing out saying embrace risk, what Governor Desantis is hoping for is that he goes on a debate with Gavin Newsom and just shows off his youthful energy, which he doesn't have a bone in his body for, and he shouldn't play to it. But that's the reason why this is such a risky debate. Because if you're Ron DeSantis, by taking this debate, you're automatically saying, I am in forever in second place, and I need something to get me out of second place. Because a former president wouldn't debate Gavin Newsom. There would be no chance.
Mm-hmm.
But Ron DeSantis needs something that's going to show him why he's different than Trump. And whether that be his demeanor in a debate, whether that be what he's saying, or whether it to be the way he articulates his policy vision for America, that there's a lot of different ways that Governor DeSantis can do it.
Do you think he's this is kind of the way to almost redeem himself? Because I know he's been having like a rough time. It's crazy to think that he was polling pretty high. I mean, he was at some point before we started doing national polls, but like, you know, just getting the feel for it. For example, on Twitter, or now is X, but formerly Twitter, they were the census there was almost tie, and then now we're here, you know, August 9th, and man, he's gone down and continually keeps going down. Do you think this is you think this would boost him up? What do you think?
No, but I do think it would solidify him as a spot as a good VP.
Yeah.
Because what Trump is lacking is his demeanor. And Governor DeSantis really complements that demeanor by being the complete opposite, much like Pence did to Donald Trump, right? You have Donald Trump, someone who's seen as super wild, someone who's not necessarily an ideologue, but just loves to get shit done. Ron DeSantis is more of an ideologue who can follow through on getting that shit done. He knows the in and outs, and granted, President Trump knows the in and outs. But you have to remember, the campaign staff for Donald Trump that got him elected in 2016 is not with him again in 2024. They're totally different people.
Yeah.
And so what he needs is he needs a smart, safe pick. Because the last time an election was run, and this is a history for you guys, if you guys have never known, the election coming up in 2024 has only ever happened one time in history, where a president and a former president have both gone an election battle together. The outcome of that was the person challenging the incumbent president, which means the person challenging the current president at the time, had won the whole process. And he did that by going with the safe nominee pick. And so hopefully Ron DeSantis is saying, give me a spot in your cabinet. I deserve it. I know I'm a governor here, but I'm also someone that's really safe. You know, I can get shit done. And when you're a VP, you're in control of the Senate. And Mr. DeSantis has a lot of experience with the Senate after getting all of his bills appealed through Florida.
I do think he's pretty good at handling the media, and so.
Oh, I disagree. He's so bad.
You think so?
This
I feel like he has.
sucks.
Well, I like how. Well, maybe it's an opinion preference, but like I think whenever they try shooting stuff at him, he always disagrees with the framing, because as soon as you agree with the framing, you kind of like fall into like the media trap.
Well, yeah, I mean, he disagrees.
So
with
like
the
for
framing.
example, I'll give you an example.
Yeah, what's an example?
So when they were talking about the supposed "Don't Say Gay" bill, like
the Don't Say Gay bill,
which wasn't that at all. It was more a parental right bill, where basically the parents have the right to know exactly the curriculum that's going on in their children's school. And so, to be honest, too, I haven't seen too much on him, because my eyes hasn't really been on Ron DeSantis as of lately.
He sucks.
For me, has been more Vivek. But I will say, during the time when I was following him quite a bit, he was handling the media. In my opinion, he was handling pretty well. So maybe now, I don't know if you've been watching him, but whenever he was being confronted by the media during, especially like peak COVID and during that time, he was handling it pretty well, where he would not agree to the framing. He would rephrase it, or he'd be like, okay, you're saying this, but like, my things don't say any of that. So he never
Yeah.
agreed with their framing. So that's what I'm referring to. So maybe you're right. I don't really know what he's been up to lately. I've been paying more attention to Vivek because I almost feel like he's been definitely, if there's going to be a VP pick,
Oh, here
that's
you
where
go.
my money's at.
Riding Vivek.
No,
Like
no,
always.
no.
Yeah, buddy.
But man, like Vivek is just masterfully like handling the media and
Yeah.
doing the same thing. And not just that, he articulates his ideas really well. And if you guys listen to him, there's no division of this and that. Every time that man speaks, he talks about in terms of like uniting
Right.
the both left. It's not like a matter of left or right. Actually, he's talking about it like we need a unity here in terms of like our ideals and what makes us what are the things that makes us American. Those are the things that we need to look at rather than like in terms of like politics. We can have our opinions and disagreements, but that doesn't make us non-American just because we're entitled to our own opinion. So but I don't know. I mean, that's just kind of my tidbit on that. I thought in the past he was handling it pretty well, but maybe as a recent, maybe he's not. No.
Gavin Newsom is a very skilled debater, and he's also a very passionate debater. And a lot of times, it's not about what you say; it's about how you say it.
Yeah.
So I would bet money that Newsom would hands down be the favorite who came out on top in this debate by any political polling.
Yeah.
Ron DeSantis doesn't have the energy to stand next to Gavin Newsom.
He definitely
Gavin
doesn't have the
Newsom-
energy.
Gavin Newsom also has a long list of accomplishments. When I feel like Ron DeSantis just gets praised for having one really good decision. Like his really good decision is, hey, I didn't shut down, my state during COVID. Because of that, all these results flourished. Well, that's great, but one decision doesn't make you the best decision maker.
Right.
A routine set of small decisions makes you a good decision maker. And I would argue that Gavin Newsom has demonstrated, strictly numbers, whether I agree with the philosophy of it or not, Gavin Newsom has demonstrated that he has a much better decision making than Ron DeSantis, especially on economic issues. Social, I disagree with almost all of them, but economic, yeah.
Maybe this one thing, because I know you did mention, I was gonna make a point on this, or at least bring up the question. Insofar as economics go, yeah, California is like the fifth one. But we do see a lot of companies moving from California. And I know he has a trade route there. So, like, I get it. Like, California is going to be a pretty optimal because you do have the ocean there and we have the trade routes there. But, like, for example, Twitter's, Tesla, like some of these big companies. And then we're seeing a lot of cities in California. So they might hold it right now. But do you think that's going to start declining because some of these big companies are going to be leaving?
No, they're still going to be in California.
You think so?
They need to be in California. And here's why. It's exactly what you said. California is home to a supply chain. What's driving people away from California isn't necessarily high taxes, because they had high taxes before. What's driving them away is bad social policy, not the economics of California. Or else they wouldn't have moved to California in the first place. It's not like a year ago where Gavin was like, hey, anything above 400,000 gets like a 30% tax rate. It's been that way for like 20, 30 years. They have a high tax rate forever. So it's not that the tax rate is causing people to move. It's that the bad social policy that Gavin Newsom has instrumented is causing the move.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
where
I'm
Ron
not
stands out.
I'm not an economist, so that's why I'm asking a question. I'm like,
I mean, I'm not an economist either, but shit, man, anything's better than that.
yeah, true. Well, I mean, let's just move on to the next one and give a little bit of a comic relief here so we could get away from like polls. And
speaking of old guys beating the shit out of each other.
yeah, although this might be verbally, hopefully we might see a brawl between these two. Let's talk about some physical brawls.
Oh, man.
Now, there wasn't an article here, and what do you think? We should play the video a little bit? Or how about this? Give us a brief backstory on what's going on, because I know they don't show the entirety of the thing.
Oh, yeah.
But go ahead, man.
No, so if you're on TikTok at all, shout out to the TikTok viewers watching me, by the way. If you haven't seen TikTok, they're calling it the Battle of Montgomery. Here's what happened. There's an old white guy parked in a boat dock, and he's not supposed to park his boat there. And there's a group of maybe not a group, but a bunch of black people on a boat, maybe 20 to 30 black people on the boat. And they're trying to get in this dock where this white guy is obviously taking it off where he shouldn't have taken it off. And so the dock owner, the guy who runs the dock and makes sure everybody's coming in safe, looks at the white guy and is like, hey, you need to get your boat out. And he starts untying the white guy's boat, which, by the way, if you untie the boat from, the dock, it goes away. So the white guy was mad because he's untying his personal property, and he would then have to jump into the water, swim through the water, jump on the boat, and sail it back in order for him to get redocked. While, the large number of people on the other boat were like, hey, dude, move your fucking boat. I need to get in. There's 30 people on this boat. So what happened? Well, the black security guard turns around his hat, cuffs up his pants. If you know, you know. And he automatically just gets shoved, not by the old white guy, but by the white guy's son. And he shoves him on the ground, starts beating the living shit out of this guy. I mean, 3 on this old guy. And you see the video from the cruise captain and everybody on the boat, and they're just livid. So one guy gets off the boat, jumps off the boat, runs, starts swimming. By the way, it's more than an Olympic-length pool. So he had to swim a long way, and he bolted over there. And then he instantly helps a black guy security guard out.
Mm-hmm.
So then, they move the boat, and then he gets put into the dock. They weren't supposed to park where they were parked, so he gets up in the dock. And here's what happens. All of the black guys off the boat then go to the people that jumped the security guard, who was just doing his job, by the way, in the first place, and just start decimating all of the white guys. We're not talking about 1 to 2, black people. We're talking about like 10 to 15 are just wailing on these white guys because they beat the shit out of an old man. So
there's a whole entourage.
It's called the Battle of Montgomery. Is what we're calling it.
That's so. Yeah, you're the one who showed me this story, and it was pretty wild. And like bras are just kind of like comical in some sense, but should we play some of this just so the audience and people
as
listening?
the Harriet attempted to dock in its designated space, designated and reserved due to the gangway access.
Oh, that's a guy.
As well as the mooring
He
requirements.
threw his hat.
The private boat
Whoops.
was docked in its
Sorry,
space.
guys.
Look at that. Look at him. He's
Prohibiting
fighting.
safe docking of the Harriet.
3 of them, 4 of them.
The captain of the Harriet
They just start wailing.
remained
5
away
of them,
from the
6 of
dock
them,
for
7
nearly
of them,
40 to 45 minutes.
8 of them.
There's a
as they
lady
attempted
casually
to
just passing by.
contact the operators of the private boat
now the other guys
via
start coming
PA
in.
system.
Yep.
They were only responded to with obscene gestures, curse words,
Is
and
there a way to
taunting.
fast forward to the response now?
The co-captain was then picked
I don't know
up
if we have
several
that
members
saved.
of the private.
But
Yeah,
while he's finding where that video is, I think the craziest part about this story is that the white guys are like, hey, like, we should be arresting all the black people. Like, no, bro, you beat the shit out of a black guy who was trying to do his job. That's what you were doing.
Mm-hmm.
Like and it wasn't just 1 or 2 of you guys saw in the video. It was like 6 to 7 guys on one security guard who was doing his job.
Yeah.
That's horrible. That's horrible. So I'm confused on how they come to the assumption that, hey, the white guy was in the right. I don't get it. I just don't get it. If I was in that place and that was any remote friend of mine, even if I saw that on the street, I would feel personally attacked. And I probably would have been the guy who's jumping in the water, who would have jumped in. Eddie knows I'm no stranger to getting into any sort of arguments or fights or anything like that. So what was really sad about this story is the way the justice system handled it. They said the white people all be arrested, and they said the black people also will be arrested. Well, like, both sides are at fault here. And if it was for me, if both sides are at fault, then I think either end should cancel. It should obviously just get canceled.
Yeah, and it's pretty wild. So I'm trying to look for here, but yeah, exactly. He was just doing his job. It's almost like, imagine you're going to a store and you're not necessarily, or no, you're not handicapped, but you decide to park in a handicap. It's kind of the same thing. It's like the rules are, well, hey, buddy, I need you to move because someone belongs there.
Right.
That's basically what's happening.
Yeah, you're
right?
in my parking spot.
So it's like, or like you live in a complex, someone parks in your spot. You're like, hey, it might have been a mistake, but like, hey, I need you to like move.
Right.
your vehicle, and that's kind of the same thing that's going on here. It's like, buddy, I need you to move your damn boat.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we get it. It's a damn boat. If it takes like 5-10 minutes, whatever, it is what it is. But I need you to move your damn boat. And the guy, he took the first punch, right? The white dude.
Dude, he came out of nowhere and just shoved the guy.
Yeah.
I mean, like.
Oh, that's right. He shoved him. So there's already
yeah.
a physical altercation
Maybe leave
right
it
there.
playing in the background while we're talking about it.
Yeah.
I've seen-
Oh, the whole video.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me find it for you. But yeah, it's pretty.
It's wild.
It's
wild.
pretty interesting.
And
So
I mean,
we'll leave that playing in the background.
I've been in
Whoa.
and out of therapy with BetterHelp.
bro, this podcast is a shit show.
No,
today.
it's okay.
It's okay, guys.
But yeah, we'll leave it
honestly
playing.
crazy. I mean, look at the video.
Oh, there's from
Look at
different
this.
angles.
Look,
Okay,
so it's
guys.
one-on-one. Yeah.
Hold on.
Let's
I'll
play this one with the sound on. I feel like this girl knows what's up.
Yeah, there
This
we
girl
go.
knows what's up.
Okay, so
All right.
here we go.
Riverboat was a major, massive slave port, which is going to feel ironic in a second. The pontoon group refused, and the argument turned violent when one of the white pontooners charged and swung at the black employee, who proceeded to throw his hat in the air, Bobby
Oh my
Schmurda style,
God.
and fight
Bobby
back.
Schmurda.
He was quickly outnumbered,
Dude,
and the
he
group
punched
of
the
white
white guy.
shirtless
Like,
voters
fuck out of my
started
That poor
piling up.
guy. He was just like, hey guys,
Well,
you
Yeah.
shouldn't be doing that.
It wasn't long before black
Look at that.
onlookers
Oh my
came
God.
rushing to the co-captain's defense from seemingly everywhere, like he'd thrown up a bat signal to the ancestors, maybe Harriet Tubman herself. One teenage member of the Wakanda Avengers even jumped off the Harriet II and swam to the dock to join in, earning him endless nicknames online, including Michael B. Phelps and Aquaman.
Aquaman.
It was then that an all-out brawl ensued. Video shows men and women punching, shoving, kicking. One uncle even grabbed a folding chair
Oh
to his
my
back,
God.
while
He
spectators
went
cheered
full
him on from the
WWE
sidelines until
style.
the police
Oh
came
my
to break
God.
it up. Today, we learned that 3 of those white men who attacked the riverboat co-captain
Okay,
are facing
that's-
misdemeanor
That's pretty wild.
That's
but
wild.
we'll leave
That's so
we'll leave
wild.
this guy playing in the background. But man, that person went WWE style, got the whole thing.
He got a
But-
chair
and-
and started hitting him over the head, man.
Yeah, I will say something that's this is MSNBC. Their host was pretty funny. I'm not gonna lie,
Dude,
but that was
yeah.
pretty funny.
Aquaman.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
so
did enjoy her commentary, although I'm not a
Yeah.
fan of MSNBC. But this is a pretty wild thing, and I'll leave this sort of playing in the background. But yeah, this guy's just doing his job. What's going on here?
Wakanda
The
Avengers,
yeah.
buddy. Oh man, that hit deep.
Yeah, yeah,
He's
that-
just doing his job though.
yeah. Poor
I mean,
guy.
look at that. It's not just one, dude. It's literally called the Battle of Montgomery on TikTok.
And you see these cops? They don't even know what to do. Like they're just like,
like, "I
we'll
don't-"
slow approach. We'll let this
Yeah.
guy's like maybe handle it. Like, oh no, maybe not. We should
Yeah,
arrest him.
dude. There are even white people fighting white people.
Yeah. I'm-
It's blowing my mind.
I mean,
what's
at the
happening.
beginning, that kid was. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
he was kind of like the sane was like, "Hey guys,
Yeah.
maybe we shouldn't be doing this." Yeah, that guy right there.
Yeah, he just comes out of nowhere.
yeah, that
starts
guy.
fighting. Look, ready?
He's like, "Guys, maybe we shouldn't." I think he got hit in the nuts.
Leave him alone, man.
He got hit in the nuts right here. Look.
In the nuts?
Yeah,
oh,
he went
gave
for
him
the
a
nuts.
nut punch.
But anyways, yeah, we'll leave this playing. But that's pretty wild. That's interesting. No,
Oh.
JT's actually the one who brought this up to me.
Literally an hour.
And
ago.
yeah, I felt like we had the necessity to put this because again, I mean, it sucked. I mean, people I'm sure got hurt, but you know, it's kind of comic. It's,
reason
it's a
the-
little funny to me. Like
It's
this just
not a
got it
little
way
funny.
too out of hand. Where, yeah, not a little. It's kind of a
It's
lot. It's
pretty
like,
fucking funny, dude.
but poor dude. I mean, he was just doing his job.
Yeah.
But speaking of ass whoopings,
Oh.
since we're on the subject of ass whoopings, I think it's an appropriate time to talk about this next story. So, Portland doctor knocked out by a homeless attacker
right.
reveals bloody wounds to her face and blames the city for slow police response, claiming she changed her vote from Democrat to Republican.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, and this is a picture of her. I know it's kind of bloody, so you know if you're not into watching bloody things, you know, sorry, but
Oh, bro.
it's pretty
We're gonna get
gnarly.
canceled on every platform for showing that.
Oh, are we?
Oh, yeah.
Oh no.
Oh, buddy.
Well, we're pretty far into it. Maybe not. But
Yeah.
so I'll stop showing that. But the reason I wanted to talk about this in relationship to that, there's a lot of this stuff happening. At least my experience, I'm going through, you know, Twitter, I'm going through
Right.
Instagram, and I'm seeing a lot of these type of videos where just either homeless people just randomly attacking civilians, or just, for example, Antifa, things of this sort. Just randomly, there's a lot of violence going on. And again, just like last week, we talked about the House of Representative or Congresswoman that's flipping because she had
Yeah.
issues with
A
her
black
political
woman, by
party.
the way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think what kind of like nailed the the coffin there was school choice, if I remember correctly. But we're seeing a lot of this chain, or a lot of this the same trend where a lot of people are moving from Democrat to Republican
Right.
because of a lot of those social policies that we're talking
It's
about.
only social policies. They're not moving because of economic policy. They move to that area because of the economic policy.
Mm-hmm.
They're moving out of that area because of the bad social policy.
Mm-hmm.
And I know Eddie may not know this, but my personal political leanings are I'm very physical liberal and then very socially conservative.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm seeing what's going on here, and I'm like, guys, you could have easily fixed this if you just had a better like moral reason
Mm-hmm.
behind why you're doing what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And this isn't the first time, you know. You're seeing it everywhere. Everybody's getting in fights. We just saw an ass whooping on the Battle of Montgomery, and now we have a Portland doctor was knocked out by a homeless attacker. Which, by the way, it's in Portland, so they openly house the homeless. And
Mhm.
so she's receiving all these bloody wounds on her face, and is now receiving help because of the slow police response.
Mm-hmm.
Yet a couple months ago, maybe even a couple years ago at this point, Portland also said, hey, we're defunding the police. Well, when you have bad social programs like this and you defund the police, this is what happens. Like when bad situations happen, you have nobody to come and get you. You don't have a standardized force, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, so it seems like we're just incentivizing more people to just be violent, just, kind of like how we see here. Now, granted, this was a homeless man, so maybe, I don't know, he's already not all right in the head. But, I mean, I think last week, again, I keep referencing last week, but, I mean, it's still pretty relevant. But one of the Young Turks host, Anna Kasparian, she went through something very similar that's making her start thinking about the social or just policies in general that she's starting to vote on, and she's having like a political crisis where she's not sure if she's very much the Democrat that she was. But basically her story, if you're familiar with the Young Turks and Anna Kasparian, they're pretty much lefty podcast or show. But what happened to her was she was walking in a park and something very analogous to this. She had a homeless man basically grab her and sorry, but like
Just say it,
pelvic
buddy.
thrust on her.
He humped her, buddy.
And she got humped basically, and the homeless man was just laughing, but she was scared for her life there. All she was doing was walking her dog. She was picking up her dog's business. And while she was bending over, that's when the homeless man came from behind and started like humping her. And she was like scared for her life, as as any sane person would be. And that was basically the catalyst to make her think like, you know what, like what am I doing here? Like I'm trying to like really push for these things that, my side of the aisle are pushing for, but I'm seeing the results and the repercussions and the consequences of all of that. And so now she's having a big crisis. And the reason I'm bringing her up, because she's a very big proponent of, or at the very least was, of all of these social policies. And so it's a crazy story. And then you mentioned that, defund the police, we're incentivizing people to just go through a lot of chaos in these states where we are defunding. And then we keep hearing stories that, once people need help, they want to call the police, but it's like, hey, buddy, you kind of like defunded them. So there's only like maybe like 5 in the city. So you're going to have to wait your turn there. So, tell your perpetrator to, hey, maybe wait 30 minutes before the police come.
Give me a heads up next time.
So it's kind of crazy, and it's crazy to see, because again, I just keep seeing this trend where there's a lot of violence, and more so too, I don't know if you've been seeing this as well, but there's a lot of like there's a trend going on where you're just for no reason at all whatsoever just assaulting white people. I don't know if you've been seeing this trend,
I don't
but
know.
like
I tend to stay away from the race stuff. I haven't seen that trend. No.
no,
At all.
maybe it's big on Twitter, but it's only been a week to be honest, where I've been seeing a lot of these things, and prominent people are starting to talk about it. That's why I'm like, oh, maybe this is something that is going on.
Right.
So you know what? We won't go too far into that statement. What I just made, it's just something that I've been seeing. So maybe something that I want to at the very least mention, but. It's a pretty crazy story, and we're seeing a lot of this. And again, it's all because of social policy. But
it's the natural repercussions of what's going on. You know, I'm convinced that the future socially of America is still going to be conservative, but I think the economic future will be liberal. I'm very convinced that we will have a very liberal fiscal policy and then a very social conservative policy. And you see that in a person running for president, Robert F. Kennedy. He is incredibly right-wing on a bunch of issues, like vaccines and how vaccines impact certain nationalities or races more than other people, which is which is controversial in itself, by the way. And his economic policy is very much, hey, like, the rich don't need to make that much money, but also, like, hey, you know, what we're doing with our money, we should probably have a nice set of values, and I think the Bible holds up a good set of values, is really what he's saying. And that message resonates people. So going back to that Ron DeSantis and Governor Newsom debate, I really think that if we lived in a sane country, a country where we didn't have such a polarizing left and we didn't have such a right that was losing the culture war, I think we would have a debate between, you know, RFK and Ron DeSantis or Vivek Ramaswamy. We wouldn't have a Trump. We wouldn't have a Gavin Newsom. Because Gavin Newsom is a representative of these bad social policies. And if I was Ron DeSantis, I would be pointing stuff out like this, like, hey, Portland copied your homeless policy, and it's also really shitty. Or, you know, I go to San Francisco now, and I see needles all across the sidewalk.
yeah,
And so what you're seeing now is Democratic voters realizing that the consequences of their bad social policy are really bad consequences. I mean, this is just someone getting knocked out. What if they were murdered, or like Anna was, you know, SA'd, right? What if there was a serial killer who just shot up everything? You don't have the police to combat it. And to a certain extent, I understand the philosophy behind it. The philosophy is, well, why have a police when, you know, we can take care of ourselves, is really what the philosophy is. But we've come so long and so used to have a law and order with the police that when you take the police away, if everybody who voted for that policy is not willing to step up, then people are going to take advantage of that.
yeah. No, I agree. And again, we're seeing it everywhere. And insofar as like the police go and bringing law and order, and we understand the sentiment behind all of that. But you're right. We need to have a general consensus amongst everyone for all of that to work. Because ideally, yeah, if we all had our act together, we weren't so polarized, there wouldn't be a necessity for a gigantic institution like, you know, law enforcement. Because you brought up conservatism, and you know the Bible is a really good framework. But if we were holding up to our Judeo-Christian values, we wouldn't have the necessity for such a large institution like law enforcement. We would still need some, because you know there's always going to be those little things that, you know, law enforcement do have to do, and on occasion, you know, people just act up. And you know, we still need those institutions, but at a micro scale, not so much as where we have them right now, where, you know, there is a lot of violence that's just going rampant.
Right.
So that would work totally, and we understand the sentiment, but that's only if we had our act together. And you mentioned that, you know, it's a conservative future.
Right.
I see that too, actually. I think that is going to be the future, and I think there's a lot of trends going on, and I think there's data actually indicating that, especially with like the new generation that are coming. I don't exactly remember which generation it was. I don't think it's Gen Z. It might be it might be Gen X. I gotta check again, but I did see something recently where there is a generation, a relatively young one, that is predominantly conservatism or conservative rather. So I do see that for sure, but tragic story. But
it's super tragic.
let's go into this last one over here, which is something
Daddy
that's been
Biden.
going on for a while. We've been
Love
talking about it, and more news keeps happening, so we just have to talk about it. We got to keep you guys informed. But from the Post Millennial, breaking. So this is news from today. So 20 million in payouts to Biden's from Russia, Ukrainian, Kazakhstani oligarchs during VP term uncovered by the House Oversight. And we got this news from the House Oversight, especially more so through Marjorie Taylor Greene. But let's go on and read. New bank records showing corrupt in the Biden family influence peddling scheme were released on Wednesday by the House Oversight Committee. The committee posted on Twitter on Wednesday saying that they identified 20 million in payments from foreign sources to the Bidens and their associates rather, and that Hunter Biden sold Vice President Joe Biden's influence as the brand. So if you've been keeping up with, or at least got to see the Devin Archer trial and his transcript, he kept mentioning something that they're selling the brand. I don't know if you had a chance to look at that, but the brand was basically Joe Biden, as it turns out. So Hunter Biden was basically selling like, hey, Papa Biden could like help us out here, you know.
It's Daddy Biden.
It's Daddy Biden.
Daddy Biden.
Yeah. I'm thinking about Papa John's. But yeah, that's basically where we're getting at right here. And so Devin Archer, during his trial, he answered all of these things like, you know what? I was a business associate. I sat down during their lunch meetings. I sold down when they were, you know, in meetings in a conference. I was right there when they were having, if I remember correctly, on speakerphone with him. Like, there's a lot of this stuff that we keep hearing. It keeps elucidating to us, you know, that there's so much stuff to just. Yeah. We could indict this guy if we wanted to. However, I know as a current president, he could just basically pardon himself. But there is so much corruption in this family, and the fact that they just cannot admit it. I mean, we have video recordings of him basically admitting it. And he also, Marjorie Taylor Greene, if I could bring up this video, and I'll play a little bit of this so you know sort of what I mean, but how he just keeps lying and lying, and Biden's just saying there's not one little bit of evidence to indicate that any of this is real. And just so you understand the spirit of it, let me just play a little bit of this.
No one's established that he did anything wrong or that I've done anything wrong. Period. He did not do a single thing wrong, as everybody's investigated. But look, there is zero evidence of any assertion being made.
Zero evidence.
You know,
Keep
there's
that in
not
mind.
one single bit of evidence. Not one little tiny bit.
Like that much.
Just anything done was wrong. There's not a scintilla of evidence that I did anything wrong. No one has produced one scintilla of evidence that I did anything other than do my job for America. I don't discuss
He's not wrong.
business with
He's
my
not
son.
wrong.
Yeah, so you
He
kind
really
of
isn't.
understand what we're saying.
No, but I think he's right. Like,
in what sense?
Joe Biden himself is not involved. It's just Hunter Biden and everybody around the Bidens are pointing, saying, "Hey, Joe, like, do this all a favor because this guy's going to give us money." So I don't think Joe's involved, but I think he is a root consequence of the problem. I mean, the problem is Hunter Biden pimping out
His
Joe
father?
Biden's power. And I don't think Joe Biden had anything to do with it. I really don't.
Well, he might be brain dead, so maybe you're right. But I mean, I definitely think he was involved. But I mean, like we say, or not like how we say, but like how we keep seeing, like there's so much evidence. Like, what are you talking about? Like, this is real. And so that's basically what the committee just keeps finding out. It's like, no, Biden, like you think we're lying here, or like,
But
dude,
they do
we
this
just keep
every
finding it.
Every president.
Exactly.
Remember,
like we gotta like Sorry, I cut you off, but go
No,
ahead.
they just do it to every president. George Bush almost got impeached for his 9/11 war crimes, right? And then after Bush almost got impeached, then they went after Obama because they're like, oh, well, the Democrats went after Bush. We're going to go after Obama for not having a right birth certificate. They're like, oh, well, you went after
That's right, I
Obama,
remember
then
that.
we're going to go after Trump for, his many, many different indictments. I can't even keep track. Most notably, his documents at Mar-a-Lago, his quote unquote starting the January 6th riots. You already know my opinion on that. And now they're going after Biden as revenge. So it's just a cycle you have going on here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's really sad. It's probably the saddest thing about politics in my opinion.
Yeah, and it gets pretty old. I feel like, and I get it. Like the story just keeps developing and developing, and it just keeps getting old. It's like, yeah, like we get it, we understand.
know
Like
we
this is
get it.
going on. We've been talking about it since the inception of this podcast. Really, on episode 1, I feel like every week there's a new thing happening, and we do have to update to keep everyone in the loop of what's going on, but. Yeah, like what do we do here? Like, because I do feel, there's definitely evidence. We keep finding out more things. He's definitely involved. Hunter's involved, and they put him there, for his political power. So, Ukraine, Burisma keeps getting all these congressional approved loans and all these things, yada, yada, blah, blah, blah. You know the thing. But like, what do we do here? Like, do we indict him? But like, if we indict him, can he technically just pardon himself because he is the president? Like, what do you do here? Like, what are we doing?
You're addressing a symptom and not the root cause. The root cause is that these people have been in office for 80 years, have a lot of powerful connections, and there are people willing to take advantage of those connections. There's lots of ways to remove money in politics, and I don't like the Young Turks. But one thing I will always stand for them, and I will always back them up for, is their root on getting the money out of politics. No matter what party you're at, it's not good. And if it were up to me, there's a ton of different ways. And I think I spoke this on episode 2, where I talked about the different ways you can get rid of it. You can lower the age it takes, the maximum age you can have. Right? Hey, anybody over 60 years old can't be a politician. It's simple as that. They can't be president. Can't hold a seat in the House, can't hold a seat in the Senate. They can run for locals, but they can't run for national. Or you could say, hey, just flat out, we were going to give every politician or every local politician, state politician, and national politician a set amount of money to do whatever they want. That's how much they have. They can't get any more fundraising from anybody else. They only have that set amount, which I personally am a huge fan of because it allows them and shows us how they would use their budget. Because if they're willing to use that budget to get elected, they're definitely willing to use that same budget to run the country.
Yeah, because we would see the intelligence of their choices. Because if you're, I understand the spirit of what you're saying. Like, if you're given X amount, like, use it wisely. What are you going to do? And that's almost like a test of like, well, let's see if they make the right choice with the amount that they have and nothing more. Or just even like a basic cognitive test. But I do agree. We should stop putting like old people who just are just declining.
80, he's almost 90, bro.
Like we need exactly
both of them.
So no, I agree. There needs to be something where, man, we pump the brakes on these old politicians. Like, I mean, we just last week or maybe a few days ago, Mitch McConnell, he was getting booed on stage, and I think the crowd was chanting, "Retire, retire." I'm like, yes, yes.
And then he had a stroke.
Exactly. Oh, that was before, but exactly that too.
Yeah.
The homeboy just like, if it's the one that you're referring to, where he was
the
in the middle of just talking and just completely stops.
Right.
And like probably stops for like 30 seconds up until that point where like, okay, I think he's broken now. Like, hey, Mitch McConnell, you want to like get out of here or something?
Right.
Yeah. So he stopped computing. He just went blank. But that's another indicator. And then also Nancy Pelosi, she was incredibly old too, and like just sounds like a witch.
But there's a difference though. Like, Trump's old, but he's cognizant. Nancy's old, but Nancy's relatively cognizant.
Yeah. So
Mitch
that's
is old, but not cognizant.
Exactly. So that's why I mentioned like we just need at the very least a basic cognitive test to make sure they're there.
No,
like
you need people. They cannot go over a certain age. If you're over 50. Should not be able to run. If you're under 50, totally cool with that.
Mm-hmm.
I would say lower the age you can run for president for 25. You have 25 years as a politician to make it in any career.
Mm-hmm.
Just like any other career, you have about 25 years until you're out of that junk and into something new. Well, politicians shouldn't be anything different. And secondly, I would also tie, and this is going to be off topic, but I would also tie a politician's salary to if they're a national politician, the average wage of the American worker on the national level, and if they're state, the average wage of what their worker is.
Mm-hmm.
So if they want to make more money, make everybody else make more money.
Mm-hmm.
Like every other corporation, if you want to make more money, you make your business more money and go from there.
That's what I was saying. I don't know if you remember where like I feel like to be a representative, because right now the incentives are, you have a bunch of bureaucrats that are going to be giving you money. It's like, hey, but you got to do favors for us, blah, 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 right? Where you don't get any of that. You get a set pay, whatever. You figure out the nuance later, but a very modest pay so we don't incentivize people for the money. Because if you're going there, like for example, public school teachers, they don't make much. But, and I'm just using this for an example, but like, at least we know you're there for the right cause. You actually want to make positive change, whether you're left or right. But at the very least, you're there because you're definitely not there for the money.
Yep.
You're there for the reason like, hey, I want to see this country flourish and become what it needs to be. So I agree with you 100% there. And I half agree with the age, because I see Jordan Peterson. I'm like, man, he's like one of the brightest minds who I know. So like, maybe it needs to be like, we got to see like where it's at, like age restriction and like definitely like limits. So somewhere in between that, it's kind of like where I see. So like I half agree there, but like I see someone like that. Right. And you're right. Like Nancy Pelosi is definitely, she's old as shit, but like, yeah, she's still there, like there's still something running there. And you're right. Trump is, he's old as shit too.
Dude, they're all old as shit.
So yeah, and so but they're still running. So like, we got to find that sweet spot. I don't know exactly what that is, but like, you're right. I think we're like halfway there for sure. But in terms of this, man, like I personally am getting so tired of this, where I'm like, man, we need like a new news cycle here.
We
like,
need something new, guys.
Like I guess
new.
I guess I opened the question of like, well, what do we do? I guess we could let it develop, and maybe for the next in 2024, as we keep developing what's going on, because I do remember they took a poll where they went to people who voted for Biden and asked them, hey, if you knew about the Hunter laptop story and this, right, would your vote have changed if you knew about this story? And if I remember correctly, it was somewhere like between 15 and like 19 from what I remember. It could be like so we'll go in the middle, like about like 17%, let's just say. And I think that's accurate actually. 17 people in this poll, or 17% in this poll voted, yes, I would have definitely changed my voting if I knew that the Hunter laptop story that they kept suppressing through all social media was true. Yes, I would have voted different if I knew that the Bidens were basically having these deals where it's benefiting them and they're selling out the American public and all of that stuff. Like, yes, I would have definitely voted Trump. So maybe that almost answers my question. And like, well, what do we do? Well, maybe we let this play out. I mean, it's unfortunate because maybe we got to keep talking about it and it keeps getting old, but I guess the positives come 2024, people are changing
But nobody's learned their lesson, man. It's not like this is like a new phenomenon in politics. This has been happening since like probably the 1800s, since recorded history.
Yeah, I mean, every single like presidential election, there's always some type of fuckery going on. That's for sure.
On every election. But on what hand do you say, okay, people here cannot make a good decision. I don't think I've told you this before, but I'm of the decision that the majority of people are just dumb. They're just stupid, they're dumb, and they can't make good decisions, especially about philosophical issues. And so I'm sitting here and I listen to these things, and everybody always complains about corruption in politics, or like the Hunter Biden story, where last year or last election cycle when Joe Biden was running, tech companies and Joe Biden openly admitted after he got elected that he didn't let that story come out, and he personally asked them and tasked them with not showing out because, well, they don't want it to hurt at the election. But it would have changed enough votes for it to swing to Donald Trump's favor.
Yeah.
And the moral of the story is this shit's been going on forever. And at what point are people fed up with it? Because I'm fed up with it. I've been only in the news cycle and in politics for like 5 years. You've been in even less so, and you're already over it.
Yeah, that's for sure.
I think corruption in politics is something somebody likes to bitch about, but they don't like to change. And until we see people, like to change, I'm relatively cool with corruption because it happens anyway. I might as well know if it's happening, whether it's going to happen or not. I'd rather. It's kind of like somebody who's openly cheating on you. Like, yeah, they're cheating, but it's a whole lot better if I know that they're cheating on me and doing this. Like, if they're flirting with someone, at least I know that they're flirting with someone, right? But here,
it's kind of like
you don't know.
Blissfully ignorant.
Yeah,
like, you actually don't want to be blissfully
You know what's
ignorant.
here. Yeah. You know what's going on. But I'm choosing to do nothing about it because of this, and this, rather than, hey, this totally isn't happening, or this totally is happening. I definitely didn't know about it. No, there's a distinct difference between the two.
And here's a painful truth. I agree with you with the
dude rockin'.
And I'm sorry to the audience who don't, but
you're dumb.
I mean, dude, Socrates and Plato were talking, or one of those two, maybe all of them. They were like, democracy. You want to let these idiots vote on our best interest? Like,
people
are
on
you
Instagram
insane?
Are saying the same thing.
Like, so I agree with that sentiment. And it's not to like downplay them. It's just, or like the people who don't have the capacity to understand. I mean, this was something that I was talking to one of my coworkers, and tell me if you agree, at least with the spirit of what I'm trying to say.
But that means I'm not going to agree.
But I think it's like what we're talking about. We were having a conversation about voting. Should it be a right or a privilege? It seems like it should be maybe like a privilege, right? Sure, we'll go with that. That's not really the point that I'm trying to get at. But what I'm trying to get at, which ties to the whole democracy thing, is us, you and I, as an example. We're trying very hard to keep up with the news cycles, what's going on in our local communities, in the macro communities, what's going on in our country, what's going on in terms of policy in our state, in terms of policy in our country, what's going on the geopolitical scale that's going to influence the United States. We're trying so hard to keep up with what's going on so we could be an informed voter, right? And then we have someone who's just feeling out their emotions, and their power of voting is equal to mine that's informed. It kind of ties into the idea of like, people are just kind of dumb and don't know how to vote. And like, that's what I'm trying to get at. So I don't know if you necessarily, I'm not asking if you agree or not, but that's the conversation that I was having with a coworker. I'm like, that's why I like the idea that Vivek is proposing, where like, voting should be a right or a privilege. I think it's more of a privilege. How much skin in the game do you have enough to turn policy around? Like, are you staying up to date with the average person who is trying to do all these things, such as you and I, but you want to change the structure of our country and you have no skin in the game whatsoever? So maybe once you hit 18, if you want some skin in the game, maybe you should at least know how our country is governed and how it runs.
Right.
Maybe you should know the three things that are setting the parameter for our government. So, you know, we have Congress and what that's made out of, which is House of Representatives and the Senate. Like, do you know that? Like, some
Just
people
basic
don't.
shit.
Yeah,
Basic shit.
So what he proposes, like, take a civics test. Just like anyone who wants to become a citizen, if you're an immigrant, you take a civics test. You know, we have an executive branch. Did you know that? Well, that's your president. We have a judicial branch. That's where our judges are at, and they're interpreting the law. Like, do you know this? You don't, but yet you have the same voting power as I do?
I mean,
So
you're not wrong.
that's kind of like, that's another idea that I really like of Vivek. And he's not saying like, hey, no one should vote because you're dumb. It's like, well, you should have a little bit of skin in the game. You should know the way the country works. And what we have right now, it's just a free game. And you know, people come out of their universities, become Marxists after that, and they're voting with their feelings. And we got to compete with that. And it's like, man, and these people don't know. But not to go off on a tangent, but that's kind of like the spirit I feel that we were talking about.
And I agree with your feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's something that we should I think it's something that we should unpack in a later episode.
Yeah, because there's a lot to talk about there.
It's a lot to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other side, if you haven't already subscribed yet,
Mm-hmm.
100% subscribe, follow. We're going to start doing live streams on Rumble next week.
Yeah,
So-
we're going to figure that out for you guys.
Yeah. So if you want Rumble, let us know.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, this is a shitty sign off. What the fuck is
No.
up? Bye, guys.
Well, let me redeem you. No, guys, thank you so much for listening, especially those you know who you are. Some of my followers are following me. Go follow JT if you're not. Why aren't you following JT?
I'm lame.
No?
Don't follow me.
Shout
I'm
something
lame.
out.
Shout out. Something.
All right, follow it's JT Cannon. That's right.
I thought you meant
right?
never,
On
yeah,
Instagram.
JT
Go
Cannon.
follow
Yeah,
him.
yeah.
Show him some love. My people, go show JT some
I
love.
don't post a lot, so you don't really gotta follow me.
But again, thank you for stopping by, guys. We really appreciate it. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like. We're on Rumble. I know it's painful. Guys, make a Rumble account. That's how you can support us. That's the easiest way that you guys can support us. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Twitter. We're on all the stuff, all of the social media.
Nice.
But until then, we're excited to see you guys next week. But yeah, signing off
Peace
on that.
out,
Sign in
squad.
off.